If you want to know what people really think about your organisation, then an anonymous employee survey can be a really good place to start. But they only tell you part of the story. The other part comes from having direct conversations with those people. One-to-ones, team meetings, fireside chats. And I believe that both of those methods are equally important. Anonymous surveys give people the freedom to tell you things, perhaps concerns or frustrations that they've got that they might not be as comfortable discussing with you openly. But the first-hand conversations offer something different. So those conversations allow you to hear not just the words, but the emotions behind those words. They allow you to ask questions to find out what's really happening for people, really to better understand what's going on for them. But there's another reason to use both methods. The difference between what people tell you anonymously and what they're willing to say to your face can really tell you a great deal about the trust and the psychological safety in your organisation. If you imagine that your anonymous survey reveals that people are feeling overloaded and disconnected from senior leaders, but when you speak to them, everyone tells you everything's fine, then that gap matters. It doesn't necessarily mean that people have been dishonest. They might more have been uncertain about whether it's really safe to speak openly. So they might be wondering, is it going to affect how I'm seen? Will my manager think I'm being negative? Will anything actually change if I speak up? I've come across leaders that say, my door's always open, but psychological safety isn't measured by whether your door is open, that physical door. It's measured by whether people feel safe enough to walk through it and to tell you something that you might not want to hear. So, one useful indicator of trust in your organisation is the extent to which the themes from your face-to-face conversations match the result from the anonymous surveys. And if people are willing to raise the same difficult issues when you speak to them directly, as they have done in the survey, then that's a really positive sign. It suggests that they trust you, that they know you're going to listen without perhaps becoming defensive or dismissive. But gathering this feedback is only the beginning. The second question is, what do you do with it? And the reality is that you're unlikely to be able or want to do everything that's been asked. So some suggestions might conflict with each other. Some suggestions might be too expensive or impractical. Listening to the feedback doesn't mean handing over every decision, nor does it mean promising to make every change that's been requested. Okay? But listening to the feedback creates a responsibility to close the loop. When people give feedback, they're usually looking for one of two things. They firstly want to influence what might happen, but secondly, they might just want to feel heard and understood. Ideally both, but even when someone doesn't get the outcome they hope for, knowing that their experience of giving that feedback has been heard, it's been taken seriously, will really matter to them. And that's why communicating what happens after the survey or the conversation is so important. Don't simply announce the 3 things that you've decided to change because of the feedback you've heard. You've got to acknowledge the wider picture. So you might say, you told us about workload, communication, career development, flexibility, and we've listened to all of those things. We're not able to make the changes to flexibility, and these are the reasons why. career development remains important, but it's not going to form part of a longer piece of work. That kind of response does three things. It shows people that their feedback hasn't just disappeared into a black hole. It explains why you've made your decisions, and it also demonstrates that just because they've been listened to doesn't necessarily mean you agree with them. And people are generally much more willing to accept a decision if they don't agree, that they don't agree, when they can see that their views have been properly considered. What damages trust is not always the decision itself, it's the feeling that nobody listened, nobody understood, nobody bothered to explain. And if employees repeatedly get feedback and hear nothing back, then you're going to get to the point where they're just going to stop contributing. They might still complete the next survey, but actually their answers perhaps have become a lot shorter and less thoughtful. They're probably going to stop raising issues in meetings because they've concluded that when they speak up, nothing changes. And just because they're silent doesn't mean they're satisfied. So if you're asking employees for feedback, use both the anonymous and first-hand methods. Pay attention to whether the messages you receive through each route are broadly consistent. And the closer they are, the stronger the indication that people feel able to speak honestly. And then close the loop. So tell people what you've heard, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, and why that's the case. Remember, you don't have to agree with every piece of feedback, but if you want people to speak and keep speaking honestly, then you do need to show them that every contribution has been heard.